Hi guys, and welcome back to the Adventures in Toy World section of some magical story time. But we're taking a break from the main storyline to present two spin-offs to you guys. The first of which being Becky and Janet. Becky Vinylface was a young doll who had been sent by the faculty of Universitoy in Toy World to act as guardian to 3-year-old Janet Ryan. She'd just arrived on the scene of a tussle between the toddler and her mother Lyra over sweets. "I want some sweeties," she heard her whine to her mother's face. "Janet Ryan, that's very naughty. You do not act this way over sweets," she told her firmly. Laura was taken aback by the fact her daughter stood down at the instruction of this strange young woman who looked exactly like a doll. "Who are you, and what right do you have? And what right have you telling my little girl what to do?" she asked. "Lyra Ryan? My name's Becky Vinylface from Toy World, recent graduate of Guardianship School at Universitoy. I was assigned to your daughter as her guardian," replied Becky, shaking Lyra's hand. "Thank goodness you're here, Becky. Glad to have you on board." "Which part of Toy World are you from?" replied Lyra. "Dolchester, Mrs. Ryan," replied Becky. She lowered herself to Janet's level. "Hi, Janet. I'm your new guardian from Toy World, Becky Vinylface. But you can call me Becky," she said sweetly, shaking her hand. "Hello, Becky," said Janet. When they got back to the Ryan household, Becky explained to Janet exactly what her job requirements were to help her understand what was expected of her. So, "Now that we understand each other, I think you owe your mummy an apology for being naughty out there today," Becky told her. Janet looked Becky in the eye. "Do I have to?" she whined. Becky stood up tall and crossed her arms. "Janet, do you need to go to bed?" she asked firmly. "I don't want to go to bed," replied Janet. "Well then, do as I say and go and say sorry to Mummy for your behaviour," Becky instructed her. "Yes, Becky," replied Janet, and went to apologise to Lyra for her behaviour. "That little girl is going to be quite a challenge," Becky sighed. When Janet came back, Becky sat her down and explained to her that her own mother, Carice, was Lyra's assigned guardian as a child. "How old were you, Becky?" asked Janet. "I wasn't even born yet at the time, considering that was 25 years ago." She was a recent graduate of the guardianship program herself. That night, both she and Lyra shared the duty of putting Janet to bed. Once Janet was asleep, Lyra turned to Becky. "It's time to assume the appearance of a normal doll now, Becky, as per your job description," she told her and watched as she sat in the armchair and went limp. Lyra wished her a good night and turned in for the night. Now guys, did you catch the retcon in that story? The retcon was the changing of Janet Ryan's age from 2 to 3. Okay. So our last story of the day will be Universitoy. This one's a prequel to the story I've just read, by the way. So, prologue. Young Becky Vinylface was a precocious young dolly who was on a class trip to the Guys and Dolls Company to learn about loving and caring and what it takes to be a dolly childcare provider. Her teacher, Mrs. China, was very pleased with her attention to detail. "I want to do this with my life one day," she told her. The tour guide was astonished by this revelation. "My goodness, young Becky, you're 6 years old and you've already chosen your future," he said. "Yes, sir." I think I should read that again, actually. So, "My goodness, young Becky, you're 6 years old and you've already chosen your future?" he said. "Yes, sir," replied Becky. Mrs. China smiled at her. "Your parents work here, don't they?" she said. "Yes, Mrs. China, it's a family tradition. My grandparents worked here too, as did my great-grandparents. I hope to follow in their footsteps," replied Becky. One of the workers passed them on her way to her workstation. She stopped to talk to the class about the hard work and dedication it would take to qualify for the job before the company could offer them jobs. "Where do we have to go to learn how to qualify?" asked Becky. "The company accepts employees who graduate from 3 universities in all of Toy World. Dorchester University, Dorchester Universitoy College." Yes, that spells duck. Okay. um, Twy, Toy World Institute, and Universitoy, which is where I studied for 3 years and came to work here straight afterwards, she told the class. Becky was so enthralled by this, she decided to dedicate the next 12 years to getting accepted at Universitoy. 12 years later, Becky Vinylface had dedicated 12 years of her life since she was 6 years old to landing a place at Universitoy to major in dolly childcare, a degree that, if she earned it, would allow her to take childcare jobs, indeed in or outside of Toy World. It would take her 3 years to qualify if they accepted her. It was July, and she was awaiting her letter from the Dean of Faculty at Universitoy to tell her whether she had had a place in their school of dolly childcare or not. The mail arrived at 9 on the dot, and with it was her letter from Universitoy. She opened it nervously, out of excitement and worry. It was brilliant news, as they'd accepted her into her chosen course as one of that year's 200 applicants to that course. She was so excited she danced around for hours. September came, and she was off to Universitoy to study dolly childcare. As soon as she entered the campus, she was greeted by the head of admissions, who greeted her warmly and showed her to the sign-up booth to sign up for her course and get her student ID card. Once that was done, she joined the welcome tour with the other new students, which was being guided by Amanda Priestley, a senior student in child guidance, who was entering her 6th and final year of study before she qualified. She showed them everything from the study halls and canteens to the student stores and lounges. After that, Becky checked into her room at the Ambient Creek boarding house, which she was sharing with 5 other students. Dennis Cloakworthy, Faith Stuffer, Tate Mercer, Leah China, and Simon Fluffman. All 6 became fast friends. Despite all being first-year students in different majors, so all had different course uniforms and textbooks. That afternoon, they all attended the fraternity and sorority fair to see if any of the houses on campus were interested in having them among their ranks. To Becky's amazement, all of the sorority houses wanted her to join them, but she could only accept the invitation from one of them. So she accepted the invitation to join the Pink Maiden sorority and fitted in there perfectly. This meant she now shared a house with 8 other sisters and was very happy. The next morning she entered the School of Dolly Childcare for the first time, and the course master, Dr. Plushmore, was pleased to meet her and have her in his class. She took her seat at the front of the class and in the centre seat so she wouldn't miss a thing. Dr. Plushmore partnered all his new students with returning students, and Becky was partnered up with final year student Laura Stitchface, a senior member of her sorority, and was more than pleased to work with her. Over the course of that day, Laura guided Becky through the basics of the course and was amazed by how quickly she learned what she needed to do. "Well done, Becky," she said proudly. Over the course of her time at Universitoy, Becky learned everything she needed to know, from going out into the human world to care for a child, and met lots of interesting toys and people, even taking part-time babysitting jobs in the human world during reading weeks. 3 years later, Becky Vinylface was a young doll who was on the cusp of graduation from a 3-year Dolly Childcare course at Universitoy, after studying hard over that time, striving to earn her degree. As she left the outfitting department in her full academic dress for the School of Dolly Childcare, which consisted of a cap, gown, and gloves, she went off to meet her parents and younger brother Tyler, who had come to see her graduation ceremony. At 3 o'clock that afternoon, she walked across the stage to receive her diploma and first full-time job assignment from Dorchester Dolly Childcare Nurseries Incorporated, where she'd be working from then on. As they handed her certification that she graduated from the Universitoy School of Dolly Childcare with first-class honours, they announced they would be sending her to London to help care for a 3-year-old girl named Janet. As she made her way to the Gateway Junction, she met 2 human children, brother and sister, Rex and Daisy, who were on a tour of Toy World, and this was their next stop. She introduced herself and said she was pleased to meet them before reporting to her gateway portal to London. Further confirmation of a retcon. But that is it for the Toy World spin-offs, guys. There are only 2 of them, unless I decide to write more. So in the next episode where I'll read these, we go to the second main storyline. Until then, if you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, share and subscribe. Thanks for watching and have us a magical time.